Okay, let us start. Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Let's correct our intentions. Lillahi ta'ala. And so today we're continuing with the book of purification and prayers. And today we'll be talking about the integrals of wudu. Wudu. Okay, so like I said, we'll be talking about the purification matters. And the first of these matters is the integrals of wudu. So the author said ablution or wudu is one of the conditions of the prayer. So the explanation, wudu became an obligation just when the obligation of the prayers were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. This means the obligation of wudu was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ with the obligation of the prayers, and making wudu a condition for the validity of the prayers. So which means it is necessary for one to have wudu while praying for his prayer to be valid. So, as we mentioned, a condition is something that is a necessary for the act of worship to be valid without it being part of that action. And so, wudu is a condition for prayers to be valid. And so, wudu in itself, it has integrals and recommended matters. So, the integrals of wudu are parts of the wudu that are necessary for one's wudu to be valid. And integral is a step that is necessary for that matter to be valid. Okay. So the first integral. Okay, so the author said the integrals of wudu are six. If any of them are left out, the wudu is not valid. Four of them are mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The other two are mentioned in the Sunnah and not in the Quran. So, explanation. According to Imam Shafi'i, to have the intention of purification for prayer or any equivalent intention when the water first touches your face. So this is the first integral according to Imam Shafi'i, is to have the intention. So, however, according to Imam Malik, it is enough if the intention preceded, meaning just before washing the face by a short time. So the first integral is the intention. Making the proper intention is necessary for the validity of wudu, because only by the intention will the act of worship, in this case, be different from the habit. So if someone gets up from his bed and washes his face, when does this or when is this considered make wudu, and when is this considered just washing the face, right? So it's by the intention. So this intention has to take place while washing the face, which means when the person starts washing the face, he makes the intention. The intention must be associated with the beginning of the act. So if a person makes an intention before washing his face, this is not a valid intention according to Imam Shafi'i. He needs to make the intention again when he starts washing his face. So again, the validity and the valid intention has to take place when one starts to wash his face. If one makes it before that, this is not valid. If one makes it after that, that is also not enough. So after washing the face. So a person puts water on his face and then he makes the intention in the heart that he is making wudu. The proper intention takes place in the heart. If a person utters the intention with his tongue without having his intention in the heart, this is not enough. So if one has something different in his heart and he utters his intention, this is not enough. This is not valid. It is an obligation to utter the intention. It's not an obligation to utter the intention with his tongue. What is an obligation is to have the intention in the heart. So he can have in his heart, I am making wudu, or I am making wudu to pray, or I'm making the obligatory wudu, or something like that. It's also valid if he makes the intention to pray Salah or hold the Quran. Now, if the intention in the heart is I am doing now what enables me to recite the Quran, This is not a valid intention for wudu. Why? Because it's not necessary for one to have wudu while being able to recite the Quran. It's sunnah, not an obligation. The judgment we have mentioned, um, to have the intention of purification for prayer or any equivalent intention when the water first touches the face. And this again is according to Imam Shafi'i. In the school of Imam Malik, if the intention takes place just a little bit before starting to wash the face, this is valid. As for Imam Abu Hanifa, may Allah raise his rank, he does not make it a condition for the validity of the wudu at all. So Imam Abu Hanifa says you don't have to make the intention. So the intention, according to the school of Abu Hanifa, is not needed for the validity of wudu. Imam Shafi'i took the proof that making the intention is a must for the validity of wudu from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which means the acts are deemed proper by the proper intentions. In Arabic, it's إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. So that's the evidence that Imam Shafi'i took as proof. The second integral, to wash the face. The author said to wash the whole face. The face is from the normal hairline to the chin, from one ear to the other, including the hair and skin, but not the inner parts of the man's thick beard. Explanation. The second integral among the integrals of wudu is to wash the whole face. The borders of the face is from the normal hairline, so the hair border, to the chin. And the chin is the lower part of the bone in length. So in length, the border is the normal hairline to the chin. The face is also from one ear to the other ear in width. So all of this area has to be washed, including the hair, the skin that exists inside those borders. The exception is the inner part of the beard of a man's beard, if it's thick. Thick means if you look at his beard and you cannot see his skin under the hair. If the beard is like that, it is enough to wash it from outside. It's not necessary or obligation to wash the inner parts, or although it's sunnah to like brush or to comb the hair with your fingers to basically, yeah, to brush the hair with your fingers. So, however, if a woman has a thick beard or has a beard and it's thick, so although this is something that doesn't usually happen, she has to wash all of it from outside and inside, the inner part of her beard. If someone has hair that's on his forehead, he has to wash this hair when he makes wudu. Because, like we said, the face starts from the normal hairline. And the hair on the forehead is not considered the normal hairline. The forehead is part of the face. So there are also two parts or two bumps on the top part of the head on the front. And so these two parts from the two sides of the front of the head, they're not part of the face. So it's not obligation to wash them when you are making wudu. However, here there are different head sizes and head shapes. So if your two bones are here are inside what we just discussed as the face, the definition of a face, then obviously they have to be washed. But if some people, these bones are outside the borders of the face, then it's not necessary. So if anybody is confused about, oh, these bones are inside my hair or my head, then you would have to wash them. It is also not an obligation to insert the water for the purpose of washing the inner part of the eye, mouth, or nose. So it's enough to wash the outside of the face. It's also not an obligation to wash the ear because the ears are not part of the face. However, it's better. As for the mustache, one needs to wash the inner part of it. Likewise, the inner and the outer part of the sideburns and eyebrows, even if it's thick. And these are easy matters. Don't overcomplicate this. Like you don't have to like severely brush your eyebrows um, for them to be considered washed. This is a yeah, it's an easy matter. The third integral is the hands and forearms. So the author said the third integral to wash the hands and the forearms up to and including the elbow and what is on them.
مين هاي؟
The explanation, the third integral is to wash the hand and the forearms up to and including the elbows. So the elbow is where the forearms and the upper arm meet. This bone area, like it needs to be washed. It's an obligation to wash all of the hair that grows on the hand and the forearms, even if it's thick. And here it's also recommended to even go beyond the bone and not to basically include all of it, but also wash a little bit even above this area just to be safe. And this is something from my teacher. Um, the author then goes back and says it's an obligation to wash the nails. So if a woman puts something on her nails that prevents the water from reaching the nails and she makes wudu, her wudu is invalid. She needs to take off and wash the nails for her wudu to be valid. So for the dirt that exists under the nails, if it prevents the water from reaching this area, it's isn't necessary to take it off while making wudu for it to be valid. So here there are two options. Some scholars said that this dirt needs to be taken off. Others said it's overlooked. So even if this dirt exists, his wudu is still valid. Also, if one has hands are cracked, he needs to wash those cracks. So the water needs to reach the cracks that are on the hand. If there is a thorn in his hand and this thorn did not go underneath the skin, so some of it is still sticking out, he needs to take it out and wash the area covered by this thorn. If there is a mole, a bump, or anything extra on the hands and forearms, it needs to be washed regardless of size. The author said the fourth integral is to wipe the head or part of the head, even if one wipes only one hair that is within the boundary of the head. Explanation. The fourth integral is to wipe the head with water. It's not necessary, according to the Shafi'i school, to wipe the whole head. It's enough to wipe a part of it. This could be part of the hair that grows on it or the skin. So if one wipes only one hair of his head or even a part of it, this is enough. The condition is that the hair wiped must be on the head. So the hair that goes beyond the limits of the head are not enough for a valid wudu. The hair on the head must be wiped. So if one puts his wet hand on the hair, this is enough. Even if it's a piece of cloth which is wet on his head, that is enough for the integral to be fulfilled. So as for the Maliki school, the famous saying is that it's an obligation to wipe the whole head, likewise Imam Ahmad. As for the Hanafis, it's an obligation to wet wipe 1/4 of the head. And the sunnah is to wipe the whole head. Let me know if I'm going too fast. So I'm like zooming through these. Okay. The fifth integral is washing the feet. The author said the fifth integral to wash the feet, including the ankles, or else wipe the footgear, that is the hoof, when it meets the proper conditions. So the explanation, the fifth integral is to wash the feet with the ankles. If there are hair on the feet, cracks, small, or the like, everything needs to be washed. This is the case if one does not wear the footgear. If one wears the footgear fulfilling the conditions, then one can wipe the footgear instead of washing his feet. So the conditions of the hoof is that among condition for wiping the hoof to be in a state of purity or must be on wudu. So for one to be able to wipe the khuf, he has to be in a state of purity, meaning he must have already made wudu. And this khuf has to cover the whole foot. The foot gear must be suitable for one to walk while wearing it. So, for example, in the past when one is traveling, they used to stop and take the luggage from the animals, rest, get some water, get some wood, make a fire. If one can do those things while wearing this foot gear, then he can wet wipe on it. If he cannot, then this foot gear is not valid. The socks that we wear usually are not enough. They don't meet these conditions. You cannot wet wipe on those socks instead of washing your feet because they are not thick enough to bear walking and to do the things that we mentioned. So if the condition of the khuf are valid, and if one is in his hometown, he can wet wipe the khuf for 24 hours if he does not take them off. Once he takes them off, he needs to wash his feet. If he does not take them off, he has wudu, and then after a while, his wudu is broken. So he wants to do wudu. So he washes his face, hands, and arms, wipes the head, and instead of washing his feet, he wipes the khuf, right? So he can do that for 24 hours if he is in his hometown. If he's traveling, he can do that for 72 hours with the condition that he does not take them off. So one is entitled to wet wipe the foot gear if he walks on it in the streets and he steps on some najas filth with the condition that this najas filth will be overlooked. So he can wet wipe on it, pray while wearing it, and without moving that najas. This is because this najas is overlooked. So what does overlooked mean in this case? It means that the whole road was contaminated with najas and there was no way for him to walk on this road without being able to step on it. And so in this case, it's overlooked. And so when he wants to make wudu, he wipes the khuf and he prays without having to wash his foot gear. The sixth integral is to observe the aforementioned in order. So the explanation, the sixth integral is to observe the order, which means to start by washing the face with the intention of wudu, then washing the hands and the forearms up to and including the elbow, then wiping the head, then washing the feet up to and including the ankle. So if one does not observe this order, his wudu is not valid. So which means if one washes his face, then his feet, then wipes his head, then his hands and his arms, he still needs to wipe his head and wash his feet for this wudu to be valid. So why? Because he washed his face with the intention, right? And so this is valid. And then he moved to wash his feet and his head. And so these two steps mess up the order, so they are not valid. And then he washes his arms, his hands and his arms. So these are valid because they go after washing the face. So up to this point, his wudu is not complete. He still needs to wipe his head and his feet for his wudu to be valid. So if one goes under the water, say for example, he's swimming and he goes underwater. And while he's underwater, he makes the intention of wudu. All of his organs of wudu are underwater. In this case, when he goes out from the water, he would be having wudu. It would be as if his face was washed first, then his hands, then his head, and then his feet. And so it's valid to do that. So now if several people threw water at him at the same time on his face, his head, his hands and arms and his feet. And so this all happened, got wet all at the same time. And he made the intentional wudu. In this case, only his face is accepted with this intention. He still needs to wash his hands, head, and feet. And so there's a difference between the case when the water comes onto him and the case when he goes into the water and makes the intention. And there were some questions at the end of the lesson. So a note here that the teacher made was that if one has the intention to lift the greater ritual impurities, and this means like the menses, sexual fluid, and the like, It is enough for him to make ghusl, and this ghusl would like the wudu would fall under this ghusl. So it's enough for him to make ghusl and wudu at the same time. The intention is enough for ghusl and wudu to be done at the same time. So a question was, if someone suffers from a severe skin burn and that part is covered with medicine pad, how can one fulfill the integrals of ablution? The answer is if this is an area or like a part of a hand that is burned and he cannot wash it because it delays the healing of, oh, so it delays the healing or harms the person, he does not have to wash that area. But washed, he needs to wash all of the other areas on that organ. Right, so he burned his hand, there's a medicine pad on it, and he cannot remove it because it delays healing or it harms the person, then he would wash everywhere else except that area. And so if he needs something that covers that area for it to be cured, and because of that, there is part of the organ that does not need to be covered, and he cannot take it off every time he wants to make wudu, because doing so will cause him harm. In this case, he washes what is visible, and then he wipes over the cover, makes tayammum, and then he continues his wudu. And there's a question, so how do you wipe the khuf? The answer is, when it comes to wiping the khuf, you wipe the area that is visible when walking or standing. So you wipe the top, not the bottom. Does blood break wudu? In the answer is, in the Shafi'i school, the wudu is still valid. So a question is, if someone is making wudu and passes gas while making wudu, does he continue his wudu? The answer is no, he needs to start over again. A question, when you wash the inner part of your mouth and nose, does that invalidate your wudu? The answer is no. It's sunnah to do that, but the intention has to be to do a sunnah act. So the intention for the obligation starts when you wash your face. So the sunnah is to first wash your hands, your mouth, nose, and then you wash your face. So if you want to do the sunnah, it would be like my intention to do the sunnah wudu. And when it's time for the water to reach your face, you would say, now I'm doing the obligation wudu. And that's what the sheikh is saying. The question is, does oil or fragrant oils prevent wudu to be valid? The answer is no. Okay, so there's a clarification. So if someone washes his right foot and then he puts his hoof on, and then he washes his left leg or his left foot and then he puts the hoof on, this does not fulfill the condition of wudu because his wudu was not completed yet. If he does this, he needs to take off the hoof and then he needs to put it on again for the condition to be fulfilled. So the wudu needs to be completed 100% and then he wears the hoof. So in this case, if he washes his right foot, puts the hoof on, washes his left and puts his hoof on, he needs to take the hoof off his right foot and then put it on again. It doesn't matter which hoof gets put on after wudu. You can put your right one on or you can put your left one on. It doesn't matter, but your wudu needs to be 100% completed before you put them on. Um, does anybody have any questions? Okay, this was really fast. It took me forever, but subhanAllah, I zoomed through them. Sorry.
No, no, I enjoyed the pace, to be honest.
Okay.
I needed it to be fast because this chapter always is like so painful for me.
Okay, that's good. So if you guys have any clarifications, you can really drop a DM or in the group, let me know what's happening. I think here is that I should ask what the question I currently have right now is if it needs to be when you're washing your arms, your hand needs to be washed first and then your elbow, or can you wash your both, like you know how when people like they're wash your hands, they're washing it together, and then when you do that, can you go to the elbow? So I guess the details are Now that I asked this, the details for me is little. Um, needs to be a little bit of clarification because then the right needs to come first and then the left. So I will update you guys, inshallah. I have a question myself.
Yay. Okay.
But like likewise, if anybody has a question, if you come across when you're making wudu, just let me know, inshallah, and I'll ask the teacher. Okay. If there is nothing, let's say tahleel and salatu ala nabi. I appreciate you guys for coming. Thank you so much for coming. Barakallahu fikum. Barakallahu fikum. Um, لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. بارك الله فيكم. Thank you guys for joining.